Hello. So in today's video, I'll be discussing properties of matter as well as chemical and physical property changes. So there are three main chemical properties, which is gas, liquid, and solid. But there's also one more called plasma that we will not be talking about or focusing our attention today. So gas, liquid, and solid. So starting off with solid, you can see by this diagram, usually solids are colder, unlike gases, which are usually hotter. And because they're colder, many of the molecules tend to pack together, which uh, is why most solids are like very rigid. So you can see in this example, ice is more rigid than that of liquid because of its um, how packed the molecules are. So, yeah, so an example besides ice is you could use metals because when metals are cold, they're usually solid, but if you heat them up, if you decide to heat them up, they'll become liquid, such as, I don't know, iron or mercury. So now going on to liquids, liquids are kind of in between. Usually or it depends which liquid, but some liquids have a really low boiling point and some liquids have a really high boiling point. So for water, it kind of doesn't have that high or low of a uh, boiling point. And you can see here that the atoms, or not the atoms, the molecules aren't as packed together. And that's why it's not as rigid, but it's more rigid than that of gases. And so liquids don't have a fixed volume. So hypothetically, if you were going to put it in if you were going to put a liquid in like an abstract container, such as like, I don't know, a bendy straw, you would be able to do that, unlike solids because they have a fixed volume. And then gas is, gas also has no fixed volume. And it's like, the molecules aren't very packed at all because they're hotter. So the molecules don't want to be near each other. And gas, unlike liquids and solids, are very compressible. That means that you could put a lot more of it into a tiny little container. So now I will be discussing chemical and physical property changes. So starting off with physical property changes. So you could take the example of like a brick. So this brick, someone decides to spray paint it green. Because spray painting the brick green does not change its chemical composition at all. This would be a physical change. Another example of a physical change is if you just decided to melt a piece of metal because the metal is not being changed. It's just taking a different form. Now, let me talk about an example of chemical change. So, chemical change is an example of it would be an example of chemical change would be um, iron rusting or just any metal rusting. So, let's say that this is a piece of iron and you leave the piece of iron outside. It rains. It's very poor. It's a very like poor piece of iron. So after a while, it starts to develop rust because the rust is coming from its first off, rust changes its physical appearance. Its rust is like brown slash gold, and so but that's not a physical change because it's changing the chemical properties. So this would be a chemical change. So thank you for watching